Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? Today's Thursday, August 21st, 2025. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. What a great week on Fade to Black, including the bloopers today in the news. That was a lot of fun. This week on Fade to Black Monday, we had Suzanne Ross here talking about souls and simulation. Tuesday night, Riz Verk was here. He's always great when he's on the show, living in a simulation. Last night, extraordinary Fade to Black with Dahlia Burgoyne, Mind Sight Without Eyes, and an incredible demonstration of what is going on there. And then tonight, to wrap up this week, Thursday night, Trevor Grassi is with us. We're talking tonight about what is underneath Giza. Now, we'll get into all of this in a second, but this has gone entirely viral over the last year. And the thing is, Trevor has been again, looking into Giza and Egypt for a very long time. I've been following him for a while and have made many attempts over the years to get Trevor on the show. And then all of this stuff blows up. And I just kind of wanted to let the smoke clear a little bit because he and the team was getting pulled from every single direction to comment on this, and including from myself. But tonight we finally lined it up. And Trevor is with us. Tonight, we're going to discover and discuss what is underneath Giza. Now, I want to remind everybody that I have cleared my calendar for 2025. I am concentrating on all of my travel to just deal with filming, taping beyond belief through the end of the year. All right, so there's that. But in 2026, I've already got a full schedule up and more to be added, starting with the Conscious Life Expo. That is February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton. I've hosted this event for now 12 or 13 years, and it's the biggest and the best. And then coming right after that is the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026 in Delavan, Wisconsin at the Delavan Lake Resort. It's absolutely beautiful. Come back from that for Contact in the Desert. That is May 28th through June 1st, 2026. Tickets on sale this Thanksgiving Day. And then I go to Peru for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. That is June 23rd through July 1st with Brian Forrester in Peru. I come back from that and turn around and head to Scotland for the Monty Python Tour. That is August 1st through the 9th. I come back from that and head back to Peru and Easter Island with Brian Forrester, and that is taking place in November 2026. There you go. Yeah. Wow. It's going to be a fun year next year. It was a fun year this year, wasn't it? All right. So wrapping up this week on Fade to Black tonight, Trevor Grassi is with us. That is right. It's my Friday. It is your Thursday. But tonight we're discussing what is underneath Giza. And here's the deal. Trevor is a researcher, but he's also a filmmaker. And his documentaries are incredible. He's got a 2-decade search for the Hall of Records that he's been moving on with. And the Khafre Project with Corrado, Malanga, and also Filippo, Biondi, and the SARS team. So we're going to talk about that and those discoveries and what is under Giza. We're going to do all of that and much more tonight with Trevor Grassi. He's right here. Trevor, it's about time, man. Oh, you're muted. Great way to start the show off. Okay, you need to click on unmute. See, I told Trevor that
You said I would be unmuted when I came in. Okay, I got it. Is the audio okay? Is that high enough?
Hey, Trevor, we're live on the air. Now we start talking.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay,
ready?
though?
Trevor, the show has started. Okay?
Yeah.
You okay. All right. So relax. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Over the years, me trying to get Trevor on the show, he's like, man, I'm not really ready for this yet. I'm not ready. And now, the moment's here and you're asking me about audio. Trevor, now's the time to move on. Okay. All right.
There's always so many of those things always come up, but I'm so glad we're finally doing it. It's good to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what you do get is the first time guest disclaimer. All right. And I know you've been looking forward to that. So let's get that out of the way. Trevor, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Well, we're already friends, but now you have to accept so we can move on.
I accept.
There you go, man. Trevor Grassi. Trevor, you're finally here, and we've got a lot of stuff to discuss tonight, of course. But I want to start with the basics, because although you've been out there doing your documentaries, and I've been following you and watching you find this crazy stuff on your own on Giza. And these tunnels, because I've been to Giza, and how you pulled that off it's just great. I mean, your work and your efforts have always been there, but and you've been doing this for so long. Why Egypt, and why Giza for you? Why this life's devotion?
Well, it really started for me with meeting John Anthony West. His books and his knowledge, his information, it really hooked me from the start. Reading the book Serpent in the Sky by John, which came out in 1979, that was it. That was really, I was always kind of interested in ancient civilizations, but that's what really hooked me on it, and what convinced me that there was something here that was worth devoting my whole life to, basically. Something that could have an outcome, that could actually be worth something to all of humanity, something that had a global significance and impact. And I don't know, I kind of started seeing that a lot of things didn't make sense with our current world. And with John, I started putting together the idea that I think the answers are in the distant past. And with Giza specifically, I think the more I learned about it, how it was kind of the central kind of apex of the entire grid of pyramids laid out across the whole planet, everything about it just spoke to me of having this global importance. So that kind of got me started on it, but it was mostly researching, reading books, Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock and all those guys. John kind of directed me towards a lot of the stuff that was worthwhile, and I could cut past a lot of the stuff that was just saying the same things over and over again. And, him finding all this stuff about the Sphinx, that was big. So. Yeah.
His influence on so many, myself included, he had a way of presenting the material, but he also, especially with his, the original video series, I just remember this painting of the picture, the way that he did it was so spooky and secret, and what is really going on, and why is this being held from us? And he had a way of delivering it that way. And I told him early on, probably 13 years ago, I told him when he first, there's this video shot of him from, it was the mid 2000s, that series of videos. Anyway, he's
Magical
next to these what's that?
Magical Egypt series.
Yeah, Magical Egypt. But there was
Amazing.
There was a video promo for that, and he turns, and it's like candles, and it's all dark and so well shot. Anyway, he just turns and looks in the camera. I was like, this is my guy. This dude right here. This is my guy.
Something about him.
Yeah, and Chance, the guy that directed that, he's amazing. and the way that that information was presented. But John influenced so many because of that style and the way that he brought the material out. So yeah, absolutely. Big hats off to Jaws. I miss him every day. I miss him every day. So let's get into this. With all of your work and documentaries and finding stuff on Giza that you've been doing over the years, that's one thing. But the SARS project and what that ended up revealing to everybody, that took off, and now you're shot out of a cannon, right? And just completely viral. Were you surprised by the world's reaction to the information finally getting out?
There were some surprises in there for sure. I knew that was coming because, you know, I had been working with William Brown for a few years, who I've kind of been filling you in on some of that. For people who don't know, William Brown is a good friend of mine, and Richard Gabriel as well. The three of us have basically been working together for the last few years. All of us have been working on it for, like you say, about 20 years or more. But most of that time for me was in research. I didn't actually get to Giza until I visited with Dr. Schock and Catherine Ulysses a bit later. But yeah, I was already working with William on finding what was underneath the ground at Giza, because more than anyone I had found in the past 20 years who was at all related to that subject or working on it, no one was on the ground like him. No one was embedding themselves into the village of Nazlet El Saman, meeting all the locals, figuring out how to work the system. It's a very unique skill set to be able to get things done at Giza. And so when I met William, he already had all these GPR scans from right on the plateau, right on the Sphinx Causeway. I mean, holy grail level of evidence of these anomalies and voids beneath the causeway, up against the pyramid. So I was a couple of years into it with Bill, and really going deep on the information he already had. A lot of stuff right next to the Sphinx, and evidence of actual tunnels and caves or chambers, not just guesses or not just working off of myth and legend. So when the Khafre Project, it was really in 2022 when they put out their first paper, which is Malanga and Biondi together writing the paper about the interior structures of the Great Pyramid. That one blew me away. I mean, I'd been, you know, obviously following the Scan Pyramids team very closely, and they'd already announced this large void above the Grand Gallery, which is now, of course, Matt Bell is working on funding the Scan Pyramids team to actually drill up there and get into that with a camera, which is very exciting.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, I just did an interview with him and talked with him about that a little bit. But when their 2022 paper came out, I could already see how it connected to some of the things that William was already showing me. So yeah, I got right in touch with them. Sorry, one second.
Yeah, and the comments over the years, I'm not going to, you know, I don't do this. I don't talk negatively about people unless it's Zahi Hawass. You know, he's open game. But anyway, when Zahi and other Orthodox Egyptologists take the position of there's nothing here, there's nothing inside, there's nothing new, there's nothing, right? Just this firm position. And then suddenly with the Scans Pyramid Project, where we get this void, we got two voids, right, in the Great Pyramid, one above the entrance and one above the Grand Gallery. Clearly shows that there is stuff still undiscovered inside of the Great Pyramid, and now things have definitely gone to an entirely new level. But is it because Egyptology really believes that there's nothing left to be discovered? Is it laziness, or they're not making the discoveries, therefore there's nothing to be discovered?
Yeah, with Zahi, there's a lot of that, I'd say, but you know, it's certainly more complicated than just him. You know, it's not all his call, but he's kind of a figurehead, you know, making sure, some of it, I think there's a level of certain things that they can make money off of giving these private tours to, and it's just about that. But there are bigger things where certainly at least some of the authorities, I'll say, are aware of certain things underground that would really alter our own view of ancient history and who the Egyptians were, who built Giza. And there are some things that they've definitely been very protective over. I mean, it's been, I don't know, it seemed like it was a strategic kind of campaign to drill around the Sphinx when Zahi was doing that with Mark Lehner, and even back to the 70s, working with Edgar Cayce and Stanford Research Institute. When they were doing all that work, a lot of it, I think, comes out to be, in the end, something that is aimed at making it look like everything we could find out has been discovered and there's nothing to see. It's a complicated way of saying, don't worry, we checked and there's nothing to find, basically. And so many of us out here are bringing up evidence that clearly contradicts that we're not saying we necessarily know what's down there, but we can see there's something. With Bill scans, for example, you can see anomalies at these 9 locations he scanned with ground penetrating radar. You can see there's anomalies at every single spot he scanned. So there was kind of the continuation of what Lehner and Zahi were doing from the Sphinx mapping project, which turned into the Giza Plateau mapping project. Both of those, I think, were really, as I say, just kind of roundabout ways of coming to the conclusion that, like, oh, we looked, we checked everything, there's nothing there. Like drilling under the left front paw, where Schock and West and Thomas Dobecki, they found the anomaly A. They found a couple of anomalies, but they called that one anomaly A. And, they drilled at this angle, which would have missed it, probably by a very thin margin. But, drilling one hole in that area at a certain angle, it doesn't mean that because they didn't hit that chamber, it's not there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, oh, we checked, there's nothing to see. But, we know there's at least like,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but with Mark Lehner here, and here's the problem, and then we'll move on to current day stuff. But Mark is a well-spoken intellectual. He spent a lot of time, his life, dedicated to Giza, and I can respect and appreciate that. But he's so well-spoken, and he comes from this position of arrogance, and he's a nice guy. But his position of arrogance that I know everything here. And so because of that, others will take that as the gospel. And there isn't another reason to go and research. So let's just leave Giza alone. And it just feels like Mark has, and Zahi too as well, want total control of what is going on. And because of that position, so much funding didn't go in other directions to discover new things because of Mark's way of delivering his version of the facts. And it has really, you know what I mean? It's curtailed a lot of research for decades that should have never happened that way. Going back to, if we start with Giza, start with the Sphinx and what was presented there. He was one of the most outspoken people against any of those ideas. And I can only imagine how much research has been passed over with funding because of Mark's position. So, and again, I'm not ragging on him. I'm not. It sounds like I am. But research and discovery and archaeology is supposed to be about thinking outside of the box and going and discovering the ancient past, not throwing walls up around it. Help me understand really quick and I've discussed this with a lot of people I've followed and everything that you and the team have put out, or most of it, I should say. But I still can't wrap my head around the way SARS works, the technology. So walk us through that, how the technology actually works and how it can go so deep.
Okay, yeah. As well as I can explain it, at least, I did do an interview with Filippo and Armando. It's called the Biondi protocol. and I asked them to explain it more in that. So that's a reference if people want to check out, and as well as another film called Amenti Unveiled. But essentially, what I tried to explain was people, the people who go far enough to actually understand that it's SAR as opposed to GPR, other forms of remote sensing, they come back with the comment that, well, SAR can't penetrate the ground more than a few centimeters, much less kilometers. So that's their excuse. It's the closest anyone comes to challenging it. But basically what's going on is it's not penetrating deeper than a few centimeters. It's picking up a signal that is basically on the surface, but the signal on the surface is showing subtle seismic waves that are coming up from below. So using just the signal that's penetrating the surface, you can see how these different waves from below are moving around certain chambers. If there's hollow areas below, you basically, it ends up moving faster at a different velocity. And so the waves, you can pick up these subtle differences. If you're able to essentially cancel out most all of the image of the main data you would normally use for surface readings, basically it's a software that Filippo Biondi developed. That's what the Biondi protocol is called. That's Money Safe today's name for it, actually. I got to give him credit because it's brilliant. I was telling him it sounds like a Mission Impossible film, the Biondi protocol.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Cool. So what is used on the surface? What equipment starts the process?
Well, it's a basic radar signal. Synthetic aperture is implying that it's creating a much wider, like a satellite dish. It's as if they had a huge satellite dish out in space because they're actually sending the satellite over the distance. So they're able to get with a single pass, much wider range of view coming down to the same points. That just improves the resolution. But what his new protocol, it's a software, it's a filtering software that's able to process those signals that are free to the world. Actually, they're actually using 3 companies now that give away this free SAR data signals from their satellites, and anyone can use them. But you need Filippo's technique in order to filter out all the main signals to find these very fine ones that can actually give an idea of what's down below. So
now, when I'm asking specifically about this, I'm so interested in it. When I read the satellite portion of this and how it was applied, that's where I backed up and went, okay, I'm having difficulty here, right? It's so cool, but it's beyond what I can understand. So are you suggesting, again, I've read this and I've heard it talked about, but I want you to explain it to me so I can understand. So satellites are overhead and they are doing a surface scan at a specific area?
Yeah, it's kind of a basic radar setup where it's sending the signal down and then receiving it back and processing that as a signal.
From a satellite.
From
a satellite. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there's 2 companies that have been offering this data, and so they added a third one later, so they're looking from 3 different satellites to make sure it's not just one that they're getting noise from or something. But basically, the protocol itself is withheld. It's behind a patent that's owned by Filippo Biondi, and he's rightfully keeping it very secure because it's a very, very important piece of technology, obviously, that filtering process he's developed, but it's combining a couple methods added together to end up at this new one that can actually look down to what he said in ideal conditions up to 5 kilometers deep, not just 1 or 2. But that's not something new either, which is a point I made in some of my films. We have a company called Geoscan. They've been doing the same thing. They said they could scan 6 kilometers deep at least as early as 2014. They were working at Hawara with Dr. Carmen Bolter, and Andrew Barker, and there's these new scans that we're seeing of Hawara recently as well. But that's not something I'll segue to just yet. That's a whole other thing, but we could mention. But yeah, there's also the company Merlin Burroughs, which kind of grew out of additional scans that were also done at Hawara by the guy Tim Akers. So both of those two companies today, you can look them up, and they have gone even further, and it's also proprietary for them. They don't explain their exact method, but they've got tons of contracts with oil companies and mining companies.
You would think so. Yeah,
like
that absolutely.
and testimonials.
Well, I've been bringing that up over the last couple of months with technology like this. It seems like oil, gold, diamonds, it doesn't matter. Anybody that is trying to find something buried, these big companies, this type of technology is exactly what they need. All right, let me ask you about this. Let me ask you about the Hall of Records. We've been searching for this. I love the quest on this, right? It's the Holy Grail. The Hall of Records, the Halls of Amenti, whatever, Edgar Cayce, the secrets underneath the paw of the Sphinx, or spread out between Giza and Saqqara. We've all heard this for a very long time, and it's part of your journey, right? The search for the Hall of Records. Dude, are we going to find the Hall of Records? Are we going to find the secrets?
Well, it's funny too, because I was going to mention this when we were talking about Lehner. He started by writing The Egyptian Heritage, was an entire book about Edgar Cayce and the Hall of Records, and that's how he got started.
That's right. That's right.
We all have to hope he's still got some inner child within him that does still hope that's the case. And there's whether or not he does, I believe, dare I say, we might have already found it. Because with Williams' work, he's been very, very much geared towards that exactly. This is why he's focused so closely to the Sphinx. We do think the record chambers Cayce describes, for one thing, he describes them in multiple forms: the tomb of records, the pyramid of records, the hall of records. I think the records are spread likely between many different chambers and many different parts, and they may come from many different ages or cultures even. So I think they probably also take many different forms. Like they could be inscribed on the walls is one of the standby kind of standard ways that you can make knowledge, eternal, not just writing it on papyrus, but,
Right. So I'm going to ask the question directly again, though. This has been your life's journey. Will SAR technology finally solve this mystery?
Well, they did. As it ended up happening, the reason I kind of blew up alongside the Khafre Project was because they first let me release some of their images from underneath. And one of the ones later on, only a month or two ago, they ended up letting me release another one that had not come out yet. It's going to be in their paper, which they're working on right now. It's going to be out any day, as far as I know. But they let me release the very first SAR scans directly under the Sphinx, which is really exciting. They ended up showing another one of these cubes like they're showing under the pyramids directly under the Sphinx. One cube, one shaft going straight down to it, about 600 meters down, roughly the same as the level we're seeing these other cube-shaped forms under the pyramids. And then, so they're showing these cubes at about 600 to 700 meters down, and below that, almost twice as far, but to like about 1,000 to 1,200 meters over a kilometer is another whole level where they're seeing an interconnected level of, what they say is looking like a city, because you can actually see these parallel lines and stuff. When you're looking at these kind of scans, if you want to tell if it's man-made or not, you need to see geometric forms to show that it's something planned. That's the only way to really tell if it's not a cave system or something natural. So we did just get our first look at the SAR scans below the Sphinx. And that's pretty exciting, because I sent you a couple of images of those scans actually, but
let me pull up. I was going to do that. Okay. So the original, I think this is it here. Are these the original scans?
This was from the original project abstract that came out from the new project. This wasn't from the 2022, but this year, March 15th, they let me release this project abstract, which was hilariously, I was perfectly ready for it, because I had just put out this whole series, The Secret Underworld of Giza, with William, 3 episodes already were out at that time, and the third one connected our discoveries, Bill's discoveries, with theirs at the Great Pyramid. And so that's how I ended up talking with them. And I was not aware that when they gave me this abstract and said I could release it, I wasn't aware I was the only person releasing it. I thought everyone at the conference was.
Okay,
So,
which image is the original image? Is
well, this one is also from that project abstract. This was at the very end of it, and that was the
okay,
first one.
we'll come back to that, Trevor. Hold on. And what is this?
Okay, yeah, this is one that they actually let out in their press conference, which the video of it came out shortly after they had the conference. But this is one where I added some lines down there so you can see these parallel and perpendicular lines. And that's the section I was just talking about that is about 1 to 1.2 kilometers down, what they're calling this secret city or buried city below, over a kilometer down. And people are saying that's crazy. But when you do actually look at this scan, at the top, you're seeing Miserino, Khafre, Khnum, Khufu. That's the 3 pyramids going across the top. So this is actually a view spanning all 3 pyramids. 1 kilometer down is where you're seeing that whole layout of these images that are showing parallel lines and stuff. That's not something natural, as far as we can tell.
So when we look at stuff like this, and then we come back to, we're going to get ahead of our skis a little bit, but this is one of the images that people are talking about, which are these columns and these spirals around the columns as well.
Yeah.
Trying to extrapolate this from an image like this is a little, for me, is a big jump. I see something is there, right? But then to turn it into something like this, is it too big of a leap, or is this pretty accurate?
Well, yeah, they didn't really show, they still haven't shown even, I mean, they've probably only shown at this point about 10% of the actual scans they were using to build these models. So a lot of people said they're jumping to conclusions. I don't see these spirals or anything. I have one image that's the spirals can be very clearly seen, but for the most part, people haven't seen all the data they're working from. So Filippo said he's working with at least 200 tomographic images from the first year. It took about a year to get 200 images with 2 computers running 24/7. So this is built on a lot more information than the public has really seen. But some of those first scan images they showed us, they were more from the interior of the pyramid and less from underneath it. But they showed a few images like that, and then a ton more came out when they published a video of their press conference that showed all of them. So this is, if you look at all the scan images they have already put out that do correspond to this exact location, I think they're making a pretty solid estimate about it, and they're not speculating on the areas that they're less sure of. So Filippo basically said he's about 90% sure of the accuracy of these models, which I think is fair based on what he's seeing. They were looking at them for like a month or two first, and he and Corrado were like, no, this has got to be noise. This has got to be just, interference of some kind. There can't be kilometer-sized structures down there. And they just went back and back again and kept looking at it. And every angle they looked from, every different satellite company they were working from, they kept seeing the same thing. So after a month or two, they started realizing, oh, we are looking at these are actually hollow tubes they describe as shafts, but there's an indication, and it's all of this is somewhat still up for debate, but that these are actually very hard shells to them. So it's like hollow tubes, but with tube walls. And the spirals around them, we also don't know if those are hollow, if there's some kind of other material. We can just kind of see outlines of edges. So at this point, we don't know the hardness, the material, the things like that, but we can see the edges of shapes that are clearly defined, like the cubes at the bottom of these tubes. You can see the edges of the cubes that, when I look at these scans, I'm saying, I don't know what's down there, but I can tell that's not a natural shape because it's literally a cube, 90-degree corners. It's like, you don't get edges like that on some natural cave that was weathered out by water or something. And they're all directly beneath the pyramid. So basically, unless you're saying Filippo Biondi, who spent 30 years working in radar, just suddenly decided he was going to pull a big hoax on the world after writing 90 papers, 90 different scientific papers on this. He just decided to use CGI and totally make these scans up out of nowhere. That's about all you could say, aside from, well, we're not sure exactly the accuracy of the scan to model process. But I think if you're looking at the scans themselves, you don't even, it does require a trained eye to really know what you're looking at. But even a layman could look at these scans and see that there are these parallel edges and perpendicular edges. So to me, it's very clear there's something down there, and it seems to be very close to what they're showing, at least. And I don't think they're jumping to conclusions. I think they're modeling it as well as they can. And the more I've got to know them, I don't see any reason for them to be making any of this up. I think these scans that we're seeing are very real. I already understood that Merlin Burroughs and Geoscan were already doing this kind of thing. And I think in a very similar process, maybe not exactly the same. But he's also working on getting to the level where they were at, where they could tell actually the material signature. So he said he's kind of working on an alphabet, creating like an alphabet of material signatures, so that when he finds something, and then he can go down and test it and say, okay, this was a metal, or this was water, or this was that. He'll learn more and more how to identify specific substances as well. So, yeah,
well, if this is, I want this to be something. I don't know what it is, but
you saw that meme, right, with the X-Files? I want to believe, and they put this on it.
Yeah, I have that poster right here on the wall. But if it is something, right, if it's man-made, if it's not natural, this would truly upend everything that we understand about ourselves, and truly rewrite history at another level that I don't know if we're entirely prepared for. Because what this suggests is that I've always believed that ancient civilization have high technology, but constructing something of this magnitude, kilometers deep, with function to it, it's almost too good to be true. Is it too good to be true, or can the world handle something like this? Because it is extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Actually, some people have actually said, like, man, Trevor, I want it to be true, but I mean, it's so huge. It's so far from anything we've ever seen before. It's so far beyond the capability of any human civilization we know of in the past. And it's like, what do you want me to say? You want me to tell you that they found something smaller just so you can believe it? They found what they found.
I totally get that. And then here's the other situation that we have, and I'll pull this image up here too, is that if we consider the construction of the pyramids, which is above ground, right? Okay. Level off the Giza plateau, build some pyramids. All right. It's extraordinary. And we still don't know how those were built. And we have difficulty digesting that. But then when you throw this into the mix, this takes it to a whole nother level, right? It's just absolutely unbelievable that an ancient civilization building something above ground. Okay. All right. Tough to accept, but we're going to work through that. But this is something else entirely different.
Yeah. Well, even the pyramids above ground, I think not many people have really taken the time to understand how far beyond any other cultural monuments,
which is my point,
even on
Trevor.
themselves. Yeah.
Trevor, that's my point.
Yeah.
We can accept something extraordinary because we can look at the pyramids and go, all right, how the hell did they do that? The what we've been told is not true. There's something else going on. Okay, so we're accepting of that. But this, holy moly.
I'm with you. I think this is a smoking gun. This is why I reached out to them. And I mean, I didn't know any of this. I knew that they had found something huge below, and they were going to tell the whole world about it March 15th. So I was preparing that from last year. But I didn't know it was going to look like this. I didn't ask them for sneak peeks ahead of time, But when this came out, yeah, and me getting to be the first person to see some of these images too, I was floored, because I think this is, I mean, what is it going to take in a world where we have AI can produce an image of a UFO, you know, everyone, or whatever it is you're trying to imagine. It's like you could fake it. You could fake videos of it. You can, everyone is questioning their whole reality at this point. And so what would it really take for people to say, okay, wait, no, this story is not what they told us. Like, did they carve these things out with hammers and chisels with fourth dynasty age, you know, copper tools? No, you know, there's anyone can come close to that. So yes, it's a major challenge to everyone's. It's going to cause major cognitive dissonance basically for the entire mainstream community. But for someone like me who's been saying, I know there's something under there for years, it's very exciting. It's like Göbekli Tepe level of smoking gun. And like I say, if they're even 80 to 90% accurate to what the scans are, if it's even that close to what we're seeing in this image, then I'm 100% in favor of going down and doing an on-site investigation. If there was a 1% chance that this was real, I would say let's go underground and see. But if you combine all that with the state that we were already in, with me and William and Richard, we were already pushing for an excavation, which was, if you're looking all the way over to the right side of this image, that's the cube under the Sphinx, that one all the way to the right. And we've been working in that area, which is off to the east side of the plateau, in the village that they're demolishing right now. So we've already learned so much about the entrance tunnels over on that end of the plateau, and we already believe we know where there are at least 1 or 2 tunnels connecting straight from that area over to the Great Pyramid, and at least 1 or 2 connecting from basically right where we want to dig at Bill's own property that connects to the Sphinx, and from the Sphinx straight over to the Middle Pyramid. So we already think, in fact, we already think we have probably 5, 6, 7 or more very likely entrances that connect into here. So even if they don't, there's at least a pretty solid potential based on the GPR scans we have and all the information which comes from, you know, the GPR scans are maybe some of the more scientific, the more hard data we have, but yeah, it's just we have a wealth of evidence to say that there are so many entrance points which we could dig at without causing any potential risk to the Sphinx, to the pyramids. It's literally just where they've demolished all these houses. There's nothing to hurt. So there's no reason not to dig, but we think there are very likely connections going all the way to these very deep mega chambers, as they're calling them. So why not? I'm saying.
Right,
you know?
right. Well, when you look at the oldest photography from Giza, when you look at those images where it's just sand, right? Just the Sphinx head sticking up, right? You look at those old images, and there appears to be nothing there. It's just sand and the pyramids that are sitting there. And you go to Giza today, Giza is full of shit. Everywhere you look, there is something underneath the sand. You and your friggin' video camera, man. And I followed you for years, just going, man, Trevor's out of his mind. You know, check this out, you know, and I'm like, where did you see? But my point being, Trevor, is that when you pull up into Giza and you start to look around, there is stuff everywhere as far as the eye can see. And it's old. It looks older than the pyramids themselves. But this is my point. Andrew Collins did one of the coolest discoveries I can think of recently, and goes into the bird tombs in the northeast corner of the Giza Plateau, a system that had been mapped out by the British in 1830. But the point being, there was nothing there. There's no caves. There's nothing underneath there. There's nothing there. And Andrew was very persistent with it. And he was convinced it had to do with Cygnus and the mystery, right? And you know the whole story. But anyway, he finds that little entrance, right? It was this big in the back of the bird tombs, and decides to go in. I would never, ever do what he did, but he did. And it's the most claustrophobic, crazy documentary you're ever going to watch. going into a
Well,
cave for the first time. But
Mhm.
Zahi said there's nothing there. Now, that cave system is huge, clearly goes underneath the pyramids of Giza. Now, let's back up. Again, looking at Giza from the old photograph, you just didn't think that there was anything. There's so much to be discovered. So Andrew makes that discovery, and it is huge and never really got to the end of it because it was just too big, the cave system. But does that cave system show up as an anomaly in the SARS images?
Yes. Well, have you seen my film about that one at all? I don't know if you've known, but I got into that system last year, and
I saw it, dude. You're out of your
okay,
mind.
yeah,
By the way,
okay, yeah.
you're out of
Because
your mind. Yeah,
speaking
you're
of
out of your friggin'
claustrophobic,
mind. I
well,
can't watch
that
it. I
was
can't watch it, man. It's just like it's too freaky. You're small.
yeah.
You probably just made it right in there, but
Well,
no.
it's not like I was like super psyched to go do that. It was literally I crawled to the back of that hole because of what you just said. Andrew brought it to light to the world in 2008, and Zahi was in there that next year or two. He brought his
Yep.
Chasing Mummies team. He went to the back. He didn't go into that tube. We call it the tube tunnel at the end. But he sent his guy inside.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he came back out.
Zahi would never do that.
He was already freaking out.
He
because of the
stands
bat.
above the hole. Yeah, he stands above the hole. What do you see? That's what he
Yeah.
does.
What do you
That's what
see?
he
And he told him to come back out and say, "Oh, I see it ends." But we have not only proof now that it doesn't end there, that it does continue, which is what Henry Salt and Giovanni Caviglia said back in their journal, 1817. They put that out, and that was the only one of the very, very few from all of history records of it that helped Andrew actually find it. He was following their journals. But we know that when he first got in there, the back end of that tube was not blocked off. And when the gate went up on the door of the tomb there, the front of it, that's when the back end of that tube tunnel was filled. And so, Richard Gabriel had also been in there at that time period, and he remembers seeing it still opened and kicks himself every day for not having crawled through it. And one of the first times he could have. But when I got to the back there, I was able to film it to show that the back end of it was filled in with dirt, that dirt was thrown in from the opposite end. So it was from behind it that it was filled in. This is very clear from how the dirt lies. There's no dirt spilled in the first 10, 15, 20 feet of the tunnel that you can access to the tube tunnel. And so, they would have been, there's no way they carried shovel loads all the way to the back and then threw it in. It's very clearly thrown in from a chamber that it's almost connected to. That's what we believe. And that's also backed up by earlier, actually, SAR satellite scans from TerraSAR X was a company that Andrew Collins actually released the images. And they show these two large, what look like cave tunnels going straight from there over to the middle pyramid. So this is why I made that film and crawled in that hole and got at that footage 2 days before the Khafre Project's press conference, because I knew they were going to be focusing on the Khafre pyramid. Andrew knew this too. He was very excited to see, just like me, that what they might potentially connect to at the other end, because we very, very strongly feel, Richard Gabriel and myself, at least in the film we made together, Revealing NC2, that it connects over to this door that's just northwest of the middle pyramid, and under that door, straight under the middle pyramid, most likely. And whenever Richard had first exposed that connection, they set up a tent right in front of this door, like 2 days after Richard released this huge expose on YouTube. They were at that door with this walled tent. You couldn't even see what they were doing. They got inside and did something for a few days and then left. And they did the exact same thing after we released the trailer for our Together film about NC2. That's the official name of it, is NC2. So we think it definitely connects all the way over. And it was, it's extremely sensitive now that everyone's seeing there's something underneath the Khafre pyramid. So I asked Armando May, who's the third of the Khafre Project, besides Filippo and Armando. And I said, I know you guys I'm not going to ask you to show me anything beforehand, but look, if there's anything at all that you can tell me about the west end of the plateau, especially the northwest end, the entire North Cliff area, because there's North Cliff 1, North Cliff 2, and then there's many other cave entrances further west along that cliff face too, which nobody really knows anything about. And he sent me this one single paragraph he let me put in my film. This was before their press conference came out. So basically, he referred to the NC2 complex as a nerve center connecting into the whole network. And this just gave me chills kind of. And I was like, yep, that's what I thought. Because Salt and Caviglia, they describe certain aspects of the cave, which we know they couldn't be describing anything within the area that we already know of. So they're describing, having to be on their hands and knees to crawl through areas. Well, the tube tunnel is the first point you would have to do that. So plus they say they went several hundred yards into this complex, which the whole cave as we see it is just over 100 yards, maybe the cave of the snake, as Andrew calls it. So Armando told me, he said, yeah, because Henry Salt and Giovanni Caviglia, they also indicated that past that point, it communicated with one very spacious chamber, he said, that connected to 3 others of equal dimensions. And from those 3 others, issued forth many labyrinthine passages. That's a quote, many labyrinthine passages. So many, I'm saying that's at least 3, maybe 4 or 5, maybe more. But basically, it sounds like once you get through that tube tunnel, it fans out and it enters into the entire complex underground.
If you look, you watch Andrew Collins' original documentary where they went as far as they could, farther than anybody. They had no idea, and but anyway, so they went as far as they could into the tube tunnel, and man, they're in an area that is so confining, with all of the spiders and the things that were in there, and you can't see anything. But
not much air either.
No, there's no air anywhere in Egypt, let alone in a cave, right? There's just, it's so true. Anyway, but then you compare what Andrew did and then look at the topography maps that the British did back in 1830. The British mapped that out. They went past the tube, and you could see on the dotted lines how big the cave system was and its relation to the pyramids. So this wasn't an unknown thing, not to Zahi or to anybody else. The British knew about it. They mapped it, and they showed it in where the entrance was in the bird tombs. So there's a lot more to be discovered. And I agree with the fan side of it on the other side, because that is as far as Andrew went. But my point with bringing all of this up, can't SARS and what Biondi is working on, can't that assist not only what's underneath Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure and the Sphinx, but what is in addition to the known cave system?
Well, that's a good question. I've talked to them about this a little bit too, and I've also at times said we should be, they should be cautious about how much and when they release certain information, because I don't know, if certain things come out before we can test or get into certain spaces, it's like, if we clue them in as to what it really looks like, they might run in down there and start blocking off some of the main entrances or things like that. It's, anyone who really knows how this works, we know cover-ups are a matter of everyday business. That's how they will absolutely cover up what they can. But so they haven't shown any actual scans from anywhere west of the pyramids. They haven't shown actual scans of anything over on that side. As far as I know, nothing is public of that. But because he told me that it's a nerve system connected into the whole thing, I know that they already have some, and they have seen, and they have told me basically that's where they believe the deepest connectors are. We have to, over in the west end there, that's how we get into a lot of the deepest stuff. And that's where, we're suggesting a lot of these entrances that we think probably connect from the east as far as the GPR scans Bill's got and all the research over in the village. But as far as the work they've done, it sounds like they kind of feel like the west end is where they've found some that clearly go down. And I would almost guarantee it's both, you know, but Armando at least has said he thinks that there's definitely some very likely connections into some of the very deep, very huge chambers, all from that western end. So I'm saying let's check out NC2. Let's also the other NC3,
Right.
4, 5, you know, going down there. And the other thing is they have the building right on top of it. It was the old Harvard building where one of the Harvard professors, I think one of the presidents of Egypt even lived there, someone at one point, but they've turned it into the Khufu restaurant now, which is super expensive and just kind of this big fancy thing. But it's like I say, they never build any structures on the plateau itself unless they're covering an entrance with them. That's another telltale sign.
Let's talk about that for a second, because this is another part where I'm just confused. All right. And I know you've thought about this. You spend too much time out there. The Giza Plateau is a limestone hilltop. All right. Everybody knows that. And somebody at some point went in and leveled that off, right? Perfectly level, and started building on it. Right. Okay. Those are the facts. These constructions that we are talking about, and I'll pop this up here, this is below the limestone, right? This is below the limestone, which also includes the bird pyramid, or the bird tunnels and cave system that originate in the northwest. Everybody, if you're looking at Giza, let me change cameras. If you're looking at Giza, okay, east, that's where the entrances are, and the Sphinx facing that direction. Behind the three pyramids to the west, in the northwest corner of the Giza Plateau, is what they call the bird tomb complex. And it's pretty massive. It's pretty big. Why are they called bird tombs? Well, they were rooms that you go into, and there's cutouts in the wall where hundreds, maybe thousands, of bird mummies were on display, right? It's crazy to see, but most people don't know about it, and it's across the sand on another part of the Giza Plateau. But how would the construction have been done for what you guys have discovered underneath limestone? What comes first? You know, how is something under there that's man-made that is underneath the limestone without evidence of ginormous construction from above?
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because, well, let me ask again. We're going to go to the break. So when we look at Khafre, Khufu, Menkaure, those are built on top of the limestone, on top of the Giza Plateau. But these pillars and everything else that go down a couple of kilometers are of the same size footprint, which is what, 18 acres, right? Of square. How is that built underneath this limestone hilltop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it makes you think. I mean, whatever the technique, it would seem to be probably much easier to do before the pyramids were built. If you're going to have to pull out, you know, cubic miles worth of stone basically to up from below, you're not going to have to pull that out through the shafts every single time. One thing that Filippo and Armando and I think Corrado and I are all very much in agreement on is this all appears to be one single thing. Somebody planned and built everything, you know, maybe there are parts underground that are even older than this stuff, but at least these structures directly below the pyramids and the pyramids themselves, everything I see indicates this was one project. It was all done at one time, and they must have basically built the underground stuff first. It does, I gotta say, as far as where I speculate to, or just imagine, just try and think about how they could possibly have done this. It makes me think of that scene from Alien vs. Predator, whichever one where they drill with a laser through the ice in Antarctica, and they make that perfect straight tube. It also kind of reminds me of the cenotes in Mexico, because even though they're very, weathered and they look natural, I don't see those things anywhere else in the world. These perfectly straight wells that just go down. I don't know if you ever seen any of those. Like, it's like some of them are 100 feet across, and
India, the wells in India too are the same. That's fantastic construction. Trevor, let's take our break. You stay right there. Our guest tonight, the one and only Trevor Grassi. We're talking about what is underneath Giza. It's an extraordinary project. You've read about it. You've seen it. Trevor is with us tonight. Trevor, you stay right there. We'll be right back after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut.
Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Trevor Grassi is with us. We're talking about what is underneath Giza and the Khafre Project and the team absolutely extraordinary conversation. Before we move on, I want to mention something really quick to everybody. There is a TV series out. It's on Apple TV. It's called Platonic with Seth Rogen, and it is what it is. But I'm kind of hooked on it. Anyway, spoiler alert. I think it's episode 2, season 2. Might be episode 3, When They Meet. That's the title of the episode. They're at a party, and the party's going on at the house. They have to get up on the roof. I think it's Roseburn and Seth Rogen. They get up on the house to reconnect the power to the lights over the party. Anyway, while they're up on the roof, they both look up and go like this. And he goes, "Did you see that?" "I did. We saw a UFO." It's like, what? Just came out of nowhere. And they run down to the party, and they run in to all of their friends. There's like a dozen of them in there, and they're all doing their thing. And we just saw a UFO. And the discussion that happens about ET, alien life, and UFOs, what happens after that is exactly what this community is all about. I'm not going to say anything else. If you just go to that episode, it's worth it. It's a pretty cool series, but wow. I had that moment. And then later on, a couple episodes later, they go, "Yeah, but we also saw that UFO together." And they have another discussion about the meaning of life and how extraordinary that UFO sighting was. Anyway, it's not a spoiler alert. You got to go and watch it, but it's really cool. All right, I want to share that with everybody. Back to Trevor Grassi. He's right there. Trevor, I want to have some fun for a little bit. I want to speculate. We have Christopher Dunn, the Giza power plant, some of the theories laid out there about the Great Pyramid, and the discussion in this community has gone on for years about that. My only personal comment is in my travels to the Great Pyramid versus the rest of Egypt, it's very mechanical. It's very industrial. It doesn't have an artistic vibe to it that everything else has. Beauty and majesty and everything else. It seems very unspiritual to me. That's my take, and I kind of kill it for people. "Well, man, didn't you have an experience in the King's Chamber?" No, not really. It's a thing. It's not spiritual. That's my take. But now we have all of these revelations that you and the team have been bringing out to the community, which furthers this speculation and theory. So I'm going to throw this out at you. Let's have some fun. I know you've thought about this a lot. Putting Khafre and Khufu and Menkaure to the side, what's the purpose of this discovery? Why is it there? What does it do? Does it do something, or is it something else? What is it?
That's the ultimate question. That's really, yeah. I mean, I consider it very fun to go to the land of speculation. I love doing it, and I think it's important to differentiate when you're obviously treading into that realm as opposed to making actual claims, which is.
But that's the best part, man. That's the best part. Tripping out is the best part.
It really is, and honestly, it forces all the normies to have to do that. All this, they can't.
Yeah.
It's kind of pushing them right out of the matrix. They can't really stay in that world that they are living in with this narrative of how things went according to the establishment, the kind of the narrative they want to keep pushing about it. It cannot function. It cannot exist anymore now that we've seen these things, at least once we confirm them. So yeah, I've been, I was talking to Chris Dunn right as soon as it happened. I was like, man, I think your book sales are gonna get a little boost here, buddy. And he was a friend already, but we started talking a lot more as soon as this came out. And I've really been interested to hear what he's saying about, how this could relate to the machine function of them in some sense. And the only thing I can ever say absolutely when I'm asked this question, like what are they and what do they do, is that I believe they had many functions, not just one or two or three, but probably many,
Such as?
Well, certainly they had, let's say, some type of energy function as either harvesters, generators, storage systems, batteries, wireless distributors. We know they produce an electromagnetic field. They produce a charge at the top. You can actually do certain things. You can see sparks fly out of the top if you I forget what the thing was, but electromagnetic, there's a plasma field generated above it that was detected by the Chinese scientists a couple of years ago. We can measure certain things that clearly tell us there's an energy field around it, but some of those energy fields are actually not electromagnetic or plasma or any type of energy that we're familiar with. They're actually more these subtle energies, more like orgone or biological energy almost, that could, kind of charge a human body or a biological organism. It's the kind of energy that we use, like when we eat food. It's sometimes very similar to electricity, I would say, but it's very different in some subtle ways. But in some form, they are energetic machinery, and they are harmonically tuned in some way to the entire planet. And this is very evident in the units, the measures, the geometry. A lot of it's not like when you walk into the temples in the south and Upper Egypt, when you go to Dendara or Luxor, and you're seeing this kind of beauty that's basically designed to shock your entire consciousness and your whole system, to lift you into these higher states of being. That's absolutely intentional and directly planned. That's part of what Schwaller de Lubec's called the sacred science of how you can actually use vibration, which most people don't think of stones as vibrating, but like John always said, it's like frozen music, like that Goethe quote.
Mm-hmm.
There is a vibration to those stones that's automatically affecting you, and that's part of how the magic of Egypt works and really does bring you to these other states of consciousness. But the pyramids are very different. You have to really measure them and look very closely to find the science that's embedded into them. And it's really highlighting these specific units of measure that are all directly based on the size and shape of the earth, which really tells us that they knew the size and shape of the earth. They weren't thinking the earth is flat. They weren't thinking, the earth is the center of the universe. They've proved many times over they understood the heliocentric model. They put, for instance, the 23.5 degrees, the rough, average, basically, obliquity of the Earth's axis, that's coded all over the place. And that alone tells us that they knew the size, shape, and orientation of the Earth's axis, because that proves basically that they knew the seasons, that they considered this 23.5 degree angle to be so important. They're encoding it into all this art. So is it spiritual? Well, I think it had a spiritual function, if you can say, that as well. But, that's a new agey term.
What if, and you bring up a really good point. You want to see how it affects people? Go stand outside of the entrance at Dendara and watch people exit that site in tears, one after another, right? Right. It just affects everybody, and myself included. And you're absolutely right about that. But when we look at this new construction, what if it, again, we're just having fun, right? We're whiteboarding here. We're spitballing. What if it's something really, really simple? What if it's just living quarters? Have you seen the series Silo? Have you seen that series?
No, but okay. I was told to watch it recently because someone said
it's really good. It's really good. And so, but it's an underground city built in the shape of a silo, a tube that goes down a couple of, dare I say, kilometers, right? With all of the levels and a spiral staircase. There's no elevators. All right. So to go up and down in the silo, you have to walk. All right. Now,
Um,
what if that's all it is? Well, that would be incredible, of course.
could be. Yeah,
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
the Matrix, where they're all underground. I mean, well, you look at there in Kuyu, and we have to ask:
yep,
were they
yep.
aware of surface catastrophes that were about to happen? Did they intentionally build this? When you do get all the way down to this 1 kilometer level where you're seeing what they're calling potentially a city, maybe that's exactly what it was. Maybe it was a place to go down and actually inhabit. Even though, if it was actually that deep in that time, it would be very deep. It would be very hot. They would need some kind of ventilation systems, which is, it's not impossible for any civilization capable of a building construction project like this could certainly have worked that out. And, that's another thing is people say, oh, they couldn't go down that deep because they'd hit the water table. Well, they knew how to move water. They knew how to drain water. They knew how to put water where they want it and not where they didn't want it. So all of that stuff I just throw right out. It's like we're dealing with a civilization of geniuses. So these would not be issues to them. But it's a really good point you're making. And I think in one of my films recently, I suggested, what if it's like the Guggenheim? You ever been to the Guggenheim in New York?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. And the
Yeah.
Guggenheim is a really, really, really great example of the idea of how this construction can work and function that way. Have you
It could
seen?
be, yeah.
I keep making these Hollywood references. Well, it's fun. Have you seen Fountain of Youth?
No, that's another one everyone keeps telling me to watch these days.
Okay. All right. So spoiler alert. Okay. The Fountain of Youth is under Menkaure. Okay. All right. There's your spoiler alert. But throughout the whole movie, they say that it's underneath the Great Pyramid, and that's where they're going. They're going to the Great Pyramid. Bad writing, lack of research and everything on their part, because they're going to the Great Pyramid, but they pull up to Menkaure. So you see Khufu and Khafre, right, off to the right, and they pull up to Menkaure. So all of us, right, that know, right, we're like, well, they got that wrong. But anyway, that doesn't take away from what I thought was pretty cool. This entire complex that was underneath Menkaure, they're calling it the Great Pyramid because they just don't know. And then the SARS team and the Khafre Project comes out with their information nearly at the same time. Very interesting and a very strange coincidence. That's why I think you should check it out just to see how Hollywood is dealing with something this sensational, because it would be a very big deal. Yeah, it's worth watching.
I was gonna share one with you too that someone left in the comments for me. They said, check out Earth, Wind, and Fire, their album cover from Fantasy 1977. Look that one up.
I'll do it right now. Hold on. Let's see.
They got some wild album covers. That's the conspiracy.
Oh yeah, they were the best. Oh, they were way ahead of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Which album?
Fantasy. They've got an image of these giant blue tubes. They're blue, just like the images the Khafre Project gave us. And then there's one.
I remember this. Yes. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah, I've seen a few different kind of predictive programming. Did they know beforehand things? There's that game, Assassin's Creed. There's a bunch of really interesting underground stuff under Hawara. I've never played those games. They look awesome. If I played video games, I would get those for sure.
Yeah, I played Assassin's Creed. I've played like half of the first one. But okay. Now, just spitballing here. Are the pyramids markers for what is underneath? Right? Or are they part of the function of what is underneath?
I would say both, most likely, because you don't want to lose that kind of thing. They're marking a very important point on the Earth's surface. They're they're just off of exactly 30 degrees. 30 degrees for one thing, it's equidistant to the planet core and the North Pole. If you made a perfect equal hour triangle, it's also located right on the longest straight line you can possibly walk on land without crossing a major body of water, and bisects that line at phi, at the golden ratio, if that's not weird enough, all the way
Yeah,
from
it's pretty
Russia
strange.
to West
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
It's certainly marking a very important point, and I was just recently talking about how if you take all the mass of all the continents above sea level and find the center of gravity, it's very close. It's very close to that as well.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that research too as well.
Yeah.
I often wonder. I love that kind of stuff because, man, I love a good conspiracy. But then I do back up and go, can you do that in other places on Earth too as well? Could you find the same thing with a Walmart? I don't know. But hear me out on this. With those pyramids and what is now underneath them, is it a stretch? How do I put this correctly? Because I love the woo. Okay, I love the woo, but I need the science to bring me back and ground me on this. But could it be a situation with the pyramid construction that the dating is crazy old? And when I say crazy old, hundreds of thousands of years old or older. And the reason why I bring that up is because when we look inside of the Great Pyramid and the work of Christopher Dunn and its mechanical nature, that I agree with, only because I've seen it with my own eyes. Okay. But none of this is in Khafre, and none of this is in Menkaure. Or is it? And that we just haven't gone in and discovered it, or do people know about it? And if that's the case, this could certainly date back way beyond 3000 BC.
Yeah. Well, it's possible they had each a very similar function, but slightly different. It could be, there's also, Jeffrey Drum, he's been talking a lot about Land of Chem. He's been talking about, a lot of people have mentioned the idea of them basically being alchemical laboratories or collect producers of certain gases. You're trying to hydrogen generators or something like that, which very well could be. Chris Dunn has kind of basically put it as an electron harvester, which I think that these new discoveries do fit with that. It could be, these coils, I've worked a lot with like 3-phase generators and worked on a lot of Tesla style projects where you're always using copper coils in some sense. And, I've wondered if these spirals are actually some kind of conductor as a capacitor or something going down. But Chris was also talking about geothermal potentially having something to do with it, the heat that's down at that level being used somehow. But what you're really asking about dates, I think it's very, very possible that at least certain parts of the Giza Plateau could go back, if not tens of thousands, even to hundreds of thousands. There could be things that are hundreds of thousands of years old there. For sure, there's no reason for me to say that there couldn't be. But like I said, I think all the pyramids were made basically at the same time, but I tend to put that around the 10,500 BC date, because that's, for one thing, what Edgar Cayce said straight up about the Great Pyramid. It does match the whole Orion correlation and the Sphinx Leo correlation and Nile Milky Way correlation. There are several reasons for it, but one of the things is I feel like maybe during that last flood and catastrophe of Atlantis being destroyed, that might have been when a crustal displacement could have happened. And if it was like Charles Hapgood talked about and Immanuel Velikovsky, then that would mean they couldn't have been built before the last crustal shift, or they wouldn't be perfectly oriented to the cardinal directions. But that's also not to say what's underneath them couldn't have been necessarily, because they were all, you can see these mounds of earth, and this is what like the primordial mounds they describe them as, and this is similar to.
Well, I've thought about that. Let me stop you right there. Okay, I'm going to clear your head on this. Hapgood's work, which is now being accepted, but he rolled that rock uphill for a long time, man. He took a lot of criticism. And it was very discouraging for him, but he stuck to his guns. But the way that I have always looked at it is, here's Africa. It hasn't moved. Everything else has broken off of it from other directions, but that has always been there. That's my take. I don't think that it's moved. I don't think that it has. That's my take. Everything else is broken off. You can see South America, where it came from. You can see where India came. You know what I mean? You can see that. But I think that right there and at the center of it all is the Giza plateau. I think everything broke away and went this way. That's my take. And I'm pretty cocky. I'm pretty cocky with that.
Okay. Well, that's not necessarily, crustal displacement is not the same as tectonic movements, because, the crustal displacement means the whole thing just slips over the mantle. When the mantle gets really heated up and lubricated, it slips. So it's not necessarily, if that does happen, you'll have 2 points on the Earth that really don't move. Because, if it slips this way, then there's 2 points on the side that didn't really go to the poles. So you will have correct. 2 stationary points. But, I don't know. A lot of Velikovsky's work kind of really turned me onto this idea that it was very likely those things do happen. Not necessarily that it happened in 12,000 years ago. It could have been much longer ago, the last time it happened. But if that is the case, it would indicate around that 12,500. But I think there's other things to say that the pyramid does likely go back even further, because it's very perplexing when you get into how it functions as a processional calendar, for one thing. And this is getting into some Gary Osborne. I don't know if we're ready to go. Gary Osborne, he's
deep. He's deep. Gary's deep.
I'm working on doing a series with Gary. I think every episode is going to be like 5 hours long, because
I know. Gary's deep. He's a good dude too.
Very amazing stuff. Yeah.
Okay, but staying on this this idea, we can see the work of Christopher Dunn. We know about the underground chamber at the Great Pyramid, which I've always speculated that it was way first. Before the construction of the Great Pyramid. That's my take, but I think everybody is pretty solid on that. But we don't have the same interior mechanical work done on Khafre, and I'm bothered by that. In that, have we not explored enough of Khafre to understand what is in there? It seems like it's always been left alone, that the focus has always been on the Great Pyramid, right?
Yeah, I think we have basically missed a lot of what's in Khafre, because obviously I'm calling it Khafre too, but I don't think Khafre built it. They don't think that either. But in 1968, SRI had done these muon scans there, and they scanned upwards from the Belzoni chamber in a cone, a 35-degree cone. They said 19% of the pyramid. This is 1968, and then they stopped at that point and never went back to it. So I'm saying, why did you guys stop? What happened to the other 81% of the pyramid? You're not interested? They said, like, we've got these new methods. It should be easy for us to do the whole rest of it now, because we have this new, easier way. And that's 1968. So I'm saying, the Khafre Project showed these 5 Jed column structures, they call them. Basically, the King's Chamber. They look just like the King's Chamber, with these 4 or 5 relieving chambers on top and a peaked roof. there's 5 of them they're showing in 4 around the corners and 1 central within within Khafre's pyramid. And so, everyone's saying, why didn't these show up in the 1968 muon scans? That was one of the big questions right off the bat. And, I'm always, Manu Says today was talking to me about that. I'm always bouncing things off him because he's one of the best.
Yes.
And so in their press conference on the March 15th, they came out with these slides and actually showed, they showed that exact cone that it would have just missed these structures. So it was as wide as they could have scanned without actually hitting them, which instantly makes me say, did they scan it all? They found these chambers and then they decided they weren't going to tell anyone and wanted to keep some plausible deniability if a team like SAR came through and actually did it. So in my film with Filippo and Armando, I turned it back on the ministry at the end and I said, it's on you, the burden of proof. If you think these structures are not inside that pyramid, then get that muon scan and equipment back in there right now. I mean, if you didn't have the money to do it or the impetus, whatever it was, now you should. If Zahi's going to come out and call Filippo Biondi, 30 years working on SAR radar technologies, amateur, that was his word, then get your scan pyramids guys in there and do it yourself. And I have heard they are now actually working on the Khafre pyramid, which is, I haven't seen any results, but I'm glad to hear that something is going on with it.
Yeah, and these 2 new chambers in the Great Pyramid, especially the one above, well, both of them. We need to. It would be so exciting if we had like a King Tut moment where we find an unmolested void, right? How
that's
extraordinary.
what I'm after. Yeah, I mean, that's what I told Matt Bell because actually there's a couple things. We believe our tunnel from the east actually does reach straight up to that large void. So I told him, I'm not against drilling, but I think if there's any alternative, we should try that first. If there's any chance we could get in through one of these tunnels from the east, we should at least try that, which is what Bill and I are still right now proposing. We're about to put in our application for this, which is really exciting. We finally have all the pieces in place. But we're saying you ought to look at these tunnels. We know that Zahi knows at least about one of the tunnels coming in from the east since 1982 when it was first found. So it's like they know about a lot of those ones. But there's another one I wanted to mention as you're bringing this up. My friend Stein Vandenhoven in 2019, he noticed something on the Menkaure pyramid, which was on the north face of it is the main entrance to Menkaure's, and it's this bulging out, red granite with the nubs on it. Looks just like
Yep. God, I love that area. But people never go over there too. Isn't that crazy? Menkaure, the Great Pyramid is amazing, and Khafre is amazing. Menkaure is mind blowing.
And even just south of there, there's a lot of excavations they're doing. I got to get some tours from a guy last year. It was pretty cool. But this is really actually pretty huge. The middle of the face, on the north face where the entrance in Menkaure is, they smooth that whole thing. In the middle, there's like a rectangle that's been smoothed out, all the stones, and then they bulge out on the sides like they're unfinished, like Saxe-Oman style.
Yep.
And so what you find on the east face of Menkaure is another one of those smoothed out spots right in the middle of its base. So there's, in the one in the north, there's an entrance going right in the center of that smoothed out space in the center of the whole wall. In the east face, there's just the smoothed out part with no entrance. And so my friend Stein, he said, he wrote a whole paper about it. And he said, this is probably another entrance. Shouldn't we check that? And some of the Scan Pyramids team with Zahi, actually, they all just co-authored this paper that just came out. And they scanned that section on the east face, right in the middle. They found a new shaft going in from the east side, like 1 by 1.5 meters, right behind the central stone of this central smoothed out area. So they just found it. They just found a new entrance, an eastern entrance into Menkaure, which, wouldn't sidetrack much past beyond that, but it also correlates exactly to this old Rosicrucian map, that Templar map that I have, that I've been trying to release, something I got from Tim Hogan actually, but that relates to the Rosicrucian map that came out from Harvey Spencer Lewis in 1936, where it's showing a tunnel along the Sphinx Causeway from the Sphinx to the Middle Pyramid and splitting off to both others. Well, it's showing the one going down to Menkaure, and it's right underneath this entrance that Stein wrote his paper about, and then just recently the whole Scan Pyramids team got on. And then there's another tiny, smaller void right off to the left of there a little. But there's about, 1 by 1.5 meter hole right in the center, dead center. It's almost exactly like the one in the north face. It's very clearly a shaft going straight down in. So we got an eastern entrance to Menkaure.
Yeah, when you go down to the temple complex and along the canal and the whole Sphinx area, and you do kind of what Andrew Collins did, but it's a very interesting thing to do, is to back off all of that and just look around you. Look at the size of the stones. Look at the quarry work. Look at how there are stones. We talk about the unfinished obelisk in Aswan. There's stuff around the Sphinx that is that mind-blowing. I mean, crazy big.
The wall of the Crow over there has some huge stones.
Huge.
And the Muslim cemetery right near there, there's some really deep wells down there. There's 3 different, the southern, eastern, and western mastaba fields. Each one of those different areas right around the pyramids, they each have probably a couple hundred shafts going straight down.
Yeah, I've seen your videos of that. I don't know how you didn't get arrested. The way that you did that stuff. Seriously, hats off to you on that. But when you look at that, it just doesn't fit the age of everything else that you're looking at there. It looks so much older.
Yeah,
it does. It looks old and weathered. It doesn't match. And just to think that it wasn't that long ago that all of this was just covered in sand, that this is all just recent discovery. This is all new stuff. I want to pull up this image in the time that we have left. This is underneath the plateau. Now, you pointed out to everybody, this is from, and I want to be clear here, this is part of the Sphinx current project. But you're saying that right above here that, you can't see my pointer, but those 3 brown areas up on the top of this image, those are the pyramids at the Giza, on the Giza Plateau, right?
Yeah. Khnum Khufu is the Great Pyramid on the right, and Menkaure Mycerinos is the Greek name, is on the left, Khafre in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's about 1 kilometer wide. If you go from the outer corners of the 2 outer pyramids all the way tip to tip, that's about 1 kilometer across. So that's a way you could gauge that image is about 1 kilometer wide then.
And then we have the square area that surrounds Khafre right in the middle, right? And so that's Khafre that is surrounded by the square anomaly.
Well, that's kind of, it's like you're seeing the pyramid at the top and then it's going down. So it's kind of elongated. It's squashed out because it's like 1 to 1.2 kilometers deep, but only about 1 kilometer wide. And obviously it's appearing much wider than it is tall, but yeah.
Right.
It's a cross section across the whole thing, basically.
So that's, and I'm referencing this for everybody as they're looking at this. And if you're listening to this on the podcast and you can't see these images, go over to the Fade to Black YouTube channel and you'll see Trevor's show there. And then you can watch the video of this program so you can see the image that we're looking at here. I had not seen this image before. Trevor sent it to me. Now, Trevor, okay, so we have the Giza Plateau on the top, which is the green, and you can see the pyramids. And then we have this void in the middle, but we also have what appears to be, I'm just going to say green because that's how it's imaged, but we have green formations that are connecting to what appears to be something subterranean. How big is the black and blue void in between the Giza Plateau and the subterranean part of this? How deep is that?
Well, all those forms at the bottom are at that range of about 1 to 1.2 kilometers, so over 1,000 meters. You can kind of see some of the shafts under Mecorino, Menkor Pyramid. You can kind of see over on that left side. There's a couple of them you can see going down. So those would be some of the tubes. You can kind of get a hint of tubes, the shafts all throughout it, but those ones are the ones that it looks like this tomographic line actually cut through a little better, so you can see them there.
I think that's the fountain of youth, by the way. That's the fountain of youth. You're supposed to laugh, Trevor. Laugh. It's the fountain of youth. Okay, so in the void area in the middle, but this is what we see as black here. This would be earth, dirt, and so forth.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, the colors aren't necessarily showing different materials, but yeah, you're mostly looking at the edges between different colors to see indications of forms. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not, well enough versed in SAR to explain exactly how you interpret each one of the colors. But a lot of the times he was saying the darker stuff ends up being voids, like, maybe all that black right at the bottom mixed in with it is very dark because it's all voids. But
could it be water? Could it be water?
I'm not sure. There's
when we say void, are we saying void of anything, that it's like air?
Yeah. Well, it depends. I think some of the scans they showed, you can see a difference between, whatever level it's at, maybe, a couple 100 meters, or we know, for instance, at the Osiris shaft, it's about 100, 120 feet down is the water table. But that doesn't mean, even just 10 feet over, it could be different if there's a drain. If you've got tubes that are a kilometer long, you could potentially drain a lot of water very easily. And we've heard legends from different people about even areas where the Nile runs underground. You could even divert it into a flowing source of water that would drain it out continuously. So I'm hesitant to say I know the water table anyway. There was one survey basically that checked the water levels at a few different points in the plateau, but that was pretty much one of the only surveys I've ever seen of that done before. But in some of the images, you can see a difference between two different types of level of, I don't know, the colors change at a certain level down, but you still see the structures going past that. And Filippo said that could be the water table right there, but he's not sure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, everybody is talking about the water table, and I think it's a very important point. And also the cave system discovered by Andrew Collins too, as well. Why wouldn't we see some of these structures going through that cave system? Part of that cave system does go directly under Khafre.
That's what we think, at least.
Yeah.
Again, all of this is, remote sensing technology. It's evidence, but it's not proof. I would say it that way.
It's not proof. It's not proof. Okay.
It's proof that it's worth an on-site investigation, especially if you have potential ways to get down in there, like we do, and we've been saying we have. Then at least potential entrances. Then it's the remote sensing only has to show enough to prove that there's something worth investigating, and then whoever's got the money they want to put up to do the project, if they're not going to hurt anything, that's the next step. It's really just getting enough evidence to get the real proof. by going down there ourselves.
2 words, Nat Geo. Okay, so that's where you're supposed to laugh again too as well. I'm pointing at my own. Yeah, you get it.
National Geographic.
Yeah. So at the top we have the green. On the bottom we have the green. Is that suggesting the same material that we see at the top when we look at because I want to discuss the brown and the green on the bottom and these structures with the parallel lines that you have added to this image. What does the green represent above, and is that what is it representing on the bottom half?
I'm not honestly sure about that. It could be that, where it switches from green to blue, that could be where there's a water table, and maybe even, this is totally, I'm speculating here. I really don't know, but it could be that, I don't know, at Hawara we found that the lower chambers were not flooded while the upper ones were. That's what Carmen Bolter told us from her scans. So you have to imagine, okay, does that mean there could be a sealed off area where the water's not going below this and there's actually dry areas underneath the water table? Could be. If they are digging this straight down through the water table, then we have to ask, how are they able to do any kind of construction project under the water table if it was under the water table when they built it? But then you go look at the Osirian and you realize they could do that. They could actually build things underwater. We don't know how, but it's clear. That water at the Osirian, it has always been there. I don't think it was ever dry. That whole temple is designed to work with the water. And maybe this could be as well. We can definitely say that the water has a major, major importance within whatever this function is, whether it's the energy function or any of the other potential functions, spiritual technology or energy technology. Water had something to do with it. And they certainly did spend a lot of time directing water from the Nile to the pyramids and back out. Some of these tunnels were certainly meant to be waterways. That's pretty clear.
They found a second Asarian. Did you know about this?
A second one? Which are you talking about?
There's another Asarian. So the director of the complex took me up there and up and outside of the Asarian and points. And he goes, "You see that?" I go, "Yeah." There's a bunch of tents and there was like 50 dudes out there with wheelbarrows about a mile away. Right. But I could see everything going on. He goes, "That's another Asarian. We're digging it up right now." What? Just like just like this one. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I saw it with my own eyeballs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I hadn't heard about that. I'd heard about something going on at Abydos near there, but I didn't hear anyone call it a second Assyrian. There is actually what some people call a second Osiris shaft, like the Osiris shaft at Giza. There's a structure very similar to that actually in Luxor, which is interesting too. But those two are very connected as well. They both have these islands surrounded by water, and you have to go through the water, and going through the water to get to the island for whatever ceremony or whatever purpose, healing that would happen there. I think that submersion in water is really the precedent that became baptism later. It's a ritual of purification, and both people say the water has healing qualities too at the Osiris shaft and the Osirian.
Well, I did that in Dendara. I went to the underground Pharaonic Lake there, and that was about 100 feet, the stairway. Have you done that? Have you been down there?
At Dendara?
No. Okay. So this is
I've gone.
Okay. I'm going to tell you about it. I'm going to tell you about it right now. Okay. In the little time that we have left. As crazy as this sounds, this is what happens. It's on my birthday. And so as a gift to me, I am told by the priests and the antiquities people that were there from the department that they were going to take me to an underground pharaonic lake. And so we're in the back in the closed off section of Dendara. You can't get back there. And so we're back and we're walking. I've got a video, man. I've got the video. It's crazy. And I'm walking with the priest. I'm walking with the priest, and I'm like, where is it? Because there's nothing but sand, right? And the walls, which are way out there. And we're walking, and then he's telling me, he goes, no shoes, no electricity, no technology, and no talking. I go, what are we doing? And so we walk, and I see off in the distance, I see these what appear to be 3 red granite blocks that are buried, but you could see them in a shape of a U, flat. But I see that, and that's where we're walking. And as we got closer, in the middle of the U is a friggin' staircase, man, going into blackness. Wow. And we walk up to it, and I take off my shoes. And he says again, no talking, no electronics. So I shut my video off, and we start walking, and right into the blackness, down these stairs, a long ways, man. And
you faded to black on your birthday.
Faded to black. And so at a certain point, I don't know, 50 feet or whatever, you can't see. And so I've got my hand on the wall, and I could feel my feet. Now I've got my hand on the priest that is in front of me. No, the priest is in back of me. My guide, Jimmy Muhammad, he's in front of me. I got my hand on him. You can't see anything. Priest has got his hand on my shoulder, and the 3 of us are going down, but I could feel my feet because up top it was 110 degrees, right? But now I feel on the steps as we're going down, it's cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler, like getting cool, and then started to get a little moist. We get to the bottom of this, 30 minutes later or whatever it was, we get to the bottom, and I could hear the water. I could hear it lapping like on a shoreline. I could hear it. Can't see it, but I could smell it. And then the Jimmy's in front of me. The priest who is next to me lights like a candle or something. No electronics, right? But he lights this thing and holds it out, and I could see, dude, I was flipping out. I could see Jimmy barely, faintly out his back, but he's walking into this lake. Friggin' lake, and he's like knee deep in this crystal clear water. I could see that. I'm looking down at the back of his legs, and he's throwing the water up. Just throwing this water up, and for a couple of minutes, I'm just in amazement. I'm in amazement, and he walks by me. We're not allowed to talk, okay? So it's all the silence, and he walks by me and he whispers in my ear, "It's all yours." Man, I run out into the lake, and I'm throwing the water up, and it's so cold and crispy, and I just bathed myself in this. And then I had this spiritual moment. It was crazy. And so when we were, the spin, it was nuts. So, but the priest told me, he said, this is where the pharaohs would go to ask questions and get answers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so walking up, and I'm walking, and I could see the the entrance way up there, man. When they told me 100 feet, 10 stories, they were not exaggerating with that. It was deep under Dendara. It was crazy, man. Crazy. Crazy.
I've never heard anything about that. That is wild.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Wow, I'm gonna have to ask.
Yeah, I've got a video. Let me hang on for a second. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on. I don't know how easily I can do this, but let me see if I can. You
said Muhammad? You talking about Muhammad Ibrahim?
No, this was somebody else.
Muhammad. Okay.
This was somebody else.
I have never heard of that before.
Yep. It was crazy, man. It was absolutely amazing. Okay.
I mean, I've heard of underground lakes before, but I've never heard of anything at all behind Dendara.
Yep.
Awesome, man.
I have got a video. Okay, so let me see if I can pull it up this way. Hang on for a second. Let me see if I can pull this up. If I can, I'll do it. I can certainly send you the video, but let me see if I can okay.
Yeah, there was legends of something like that under Giza too, actually, or of a city that was, I don't know, it was on the shores of an underground lake that was on the Nile, somewhere deep under Giza. There's stories about it. Someone sent videos, but never been.
Released. This I did myself, and if and I've talked to William Henry. I've talked to other people about this that are specialists when it comes to Egypt. I've never heard of it, and I can't. Let me see here. Let me look at this one more time. No, I can't find it here. I thought it was on my desktop, but I don't have it. I was going to show you.
When are you going back? You got to take me there.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, it's crazy. And when for me to go across and looking like, because they were describing it to me. And Trevor, you know Egypt. This is what you do, right? So they're describing this to me. I'm like, where is it? You know, what? And right in the middle of the sand were these three giant red granite stones that were buried. You're only looking at the top couple of inches, right? Like in a U, one across the top, two down, and in the middle, stairwell.
That's amazing.
It was crazy.
So glad you shared that with me, because that's I've never heard of it. That sounds really, really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, so what's up next for you? What are you working on now? What's the next chapter?
Well, we're pushing for the excavation. We're pushing for the excavation at two spots, right near the Sphinx and right near the Pyramid Causeway. We think we've got basically a tunnel that's going straight to the Great Pyramid and into all those hidden chambers, and we think we got a tunnel that's going straight under the Sphinx. And I mean, I see we got like 3 minutes left, so I can't get into the details too much about it, but we have so much evidence about this Sphinx area. This is why Bill literally bought the building right there, because he knows there's something really important there. We basically think we are sitting on the record hall. Like it's basically within 100 feet or within 100 meters, let's say, of where we're trying to dig. So we're pushing for this. We've got a much better shot than we have ever had in the past. We're about to put in an application, and really hoping everyone wishes us luck, believe in this, manifest this with us. Everyone's, I keep getting these comments from the people that are like, they'll never let it happen. As long as Zahi's there, it'll never happen. They're just going to keep covering it up. And I'm like, how powerless are you? Giving Right. You're handing it to them. Oh, you think it's impossible? Let me tell you something. William Brown did it 3 times. He did it in 2006, got GPR scans of the plateau. The impossible. He achieved it. He went to Hawara a couple years later. He got GPR scans and proved all the entrances into the labyrinth. He went back to Giza 2010-11. He got a project to clear this whole area of trash and debris. He found another 10 dozen different cave entrances right next to his property. And then he literally bought property right outside the wall to do it. So the people who say it's impossible, no, it's very difficult. It requires a lot of different requisites, but it's definitely not impossible, and we are really close to doing it. And I think we can. Not me, I'm not going to be running this project. No, we're trying to fund the right people, the professionals. we don't need that much equipment. We want to scan this whole area and dig in one area at least, and then dig where we find others. But, well, 2 spots generally that we want to dig, but both are extremely promising, and we think both will, if we get the right to dig at either one of these 2 spots in the village there on the east, we will, in the first week of work, show the world some amazing things, because we already know they're there.
Trevor, I've known you for a long time, and it was just so much fun to finally do this. We've been talking about doing this for years. We're not exaggerating about that. This goes back a long time.
Yeah.
But I encourage everybody to go over to Trevor's social media, go and hit him up on Facebook. He's constantly posting very, very cool stuff there, and some of the most amazing videos. And when I talk about boots on the ground, going out there and getting it done, Trevor is one that does this. He doesn't play around on the front of everything, and it's very exciting. Trevor, my friend, great night, man. And I look forward to our next conversation. And now that we finally got this one out of the way, we can start doing this on a more regular basis. All right, man?
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Maybe next time we'll be actively excavating, and I can bring you some real hot stuff right off the press.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. All right. Thank you so much, my friend. Yeah, you're the best, Trevor. You already know that. And enjoy the rest of your weekend and the rest of your evening. And I certainly look forward to our next time right here on Fade to Black. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
The best. Trevor Grassi, everybody. Yeah, go follow him. We've got his links below and stuff, but very easy to chase down on Facebook and YouTube, and go and look at everything that he presents. It's absolutely extraordinary. All right, everybody. So listen, this is my Friday. It is your Thursday, but it's my Friday. So I am going to start my weekend now. I've got to go continue to work, but that's it for me. And I will see you right back here on Monday. But for now, all I've got is go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.